Hello, my name is Melissa Daniels and I have strabismus. Strabismus is when your eyes don't point straight and your brain doesn't really know how to use your eyes together. I've overcome so much of the strabismus that I was born with and had throughout my whole life. My eyes are mostly straight. I can use them together often, most of the time, and I have learned so much in the process. And that's what this channel and my website, that's what they're all about. Now, in the last 6 months, I've actually also become a vision therapist. And because of that, I get to go to the annual vision therapy conference. And I just got back from that and it was amazing and I learned so much. And in this video, I am going to share my top highlights of what I learned from that conference that I think you guys would be interested in. I had some really big aha moments. I'm definitely learning as I go. I am not a doctor. The information on this channel and on my website is not always 100% accurate. That's what makes it so exciting. I try to be as accurate as possible, but constantly learning new things and fine-tuning the information that I share with you. So I have some great highlights to share today. Now, before we jump into that, I want to make sure you go over to learn.strabismussolutions.com and check out the resources that I have. I have a few different courses. You can sign up for a Zoom call. You can take the quiz that can help you know what direction you need to go, and that's free. And other free downloads, you can find a vision therapy office. I have pretty much any resource that you would need over there to help get you started on your journey. So I was only there for a short time, but I packed in as much information as I could. So I'm going to kind of go by the different lectures that I was able to attend and share the things that I loved the most. The first class that I attended was actually a 2-day class, and I caught the last few hours because my plane got in early enough. It was with Dr. Robert Sannett and Pilar Vergara. They are both amazing optometrists who know all the things about strabismus and amblyopia. Pilar actually wrote a book that I have talked about on this channel. It's called Crossed and Lazy Eyes. 100% recommend it. She talks about the possibilities for correcting those things with vision therapy, even for adults. And Dr. Sannett is kind of like the king of the vision therapy world at the moment, and he really advocates for the new way of doing treatment for strabismus. Instead of starting with patching, you start peripherally and work in. So a lot of the things that I talk about on this channel definitely come from him. So I got to go sit in on their class for a few hours, which was so fun. I wish I could have been there the whole time. And the class was about strabismus. I luckily came in at the end and got a summary of everything else that they'd been talking about for 2 days, which was really fun. So first we're talking about exotropia. Exotropia is when you have an eye that goes out. So it might also be called divergence excess. And the big thing that he kept saying is people with exotropia or divergence excess can be central and they can do a central task and align their eye, or they can be really peripheral and ignore the central, but they can't do both at the same time. I thought that was really fascinating to me. And so he said, for people with exotropia, you need to focus on a central target, maybe have a letter chart while you're doing peripheral exercises. I hadn't thought of that before, but it definitely makes sense. If you've done my Mastering Peripheral course, taking some of those tasks where, we're working on different peripheral exercises, but then putting like a letter chart or something where you have to really focus on details in the middle. So you've got a central activity and peripheral. So cool. For esotropia, he just reiterated what I've been preaching on here forever. Don't do patching. Don't do anything central. When you've got this esotropia, your eyes are turning in and you're kind of all stuck right here. So he says, don't even worry about the amblyopia. He's like, keep the amblyopia. That's fine. Don't patch. Don't do anything that is going to make your brain want to suppress. You just allow the blur, because blur gives you the freedom to use both eyes. So even if you've got one eye that's blurry and one eye that's clear, which is what I have, your brain can actually still combine those together and give you a lot better depth perception. And he said, eventually the eye will become clearer and you do that later. But first you have to make the brain okay with using both eyes at the same time. So he just was so strong on that. And I thought, wow, okay, he really means it. No central activities. If you have an inward eye turn, nothing central. It's all got to be peripheral. So that Mastering Peripheral course, again, is like that focus on seeing the space, but nothing central. It's just so interesting to hear it from the genius, right? Another little fun takeaway, I got to go to a symposium that was honoring an optometrist named W.C. Maples. He's quite a bit older. He's retired at this point, and he has taught probably hundreds of vision therapists and optometrists how to do vision therapy. He's written books, developed different testing. So it was a whole night just honoring him. And it was really fun. But every single person that got up and talked about him quoted his big quote. And that is, start where they are, go where they ain't. So with any vision therapy, with any sort of patient, you start where they are, where they can have success, and then you go where they can't, but you always start where they are. And it was so fun. Someone from Provo, Utah, which is not too far from me, about 4 hours away, he wrote a song about it. So I'll play that clip right here.
Start where you are, and go where you ain't. You've got to say I can when you think you can't. Take things one step at a time. Remember this, you'll be just fine. Start right where you are and go where you ain't.
Then we went the next day and I got to listen to Dr. David Cook give a lecture. As you guys know, if you've been following for a while, he's kind of my hero. Like, all the star eyes for Dr. David Cook. I've read his book. My Mastering Peripheral course is based a lot on his different philosophies and teachings, and he's just amazing, and he speaks the strabismus language. I would love to just regurgitate every single word that he said because everything was mind-blowing. All right, so I wanted to get the wording right, so I'm going to read this from my notes. Dr. Cook said, if we don't experience a specific scenario visually, we can't make concrete sense of it unless our body has touched, moved, and experienced that situation. So he's talking a lot about, especially for people with strabismus, we've never experienced so much of this world because we're seeing in 2D instead of in 3D. It's a very different experience, and we can't make concrete sense of it. It just is kind of like this weird, no, it's not logical, it doesn't make sense. And so we have to physically experience it. And the way he explained this with an example would be, if you're looking at me right now, I look, and you were to measure me with how much of the screen I'm taking up, I am bigger than this door, right? My head is almost the same size as the door. But do you see it as that? Do you think that my head is just this is just a really tiny door? No. You've been in enough conversations and rooms with people that you know that this is a normal sized door. It's just further back. That's why it looks smaller. And I'm closer to the camera, so I look bigger. And you have the ability to make that perceptual difference. And because you've experienced it, you've been in lots of rooms, you've opened lots of doors, you're able to make sense of that situation because you're used to it. But if you are in an airplane or on top of a building and looking down at the people, they look like little ants. You don't see them as a full person because you're not, he made the comparison Spider-Man would be good at that because Spider-Man is going up and down the walls and he's on top of the building and down and he sees the people. He's experienced that visual space. And so for him to make perceptual sense of that, it totally makes sense. Well, when we have strabismus, we have problems with that, making that concrete sense. And so we have to give ourselves lots of opportunities for building those concrete feelings of 3D. And that is going to be incorporating your vestibular, your touch, your auditory, all your different senses as you're learning the new visual skills, trying to make it a whole body experience. So that helped me see that's why we're using all these different things in vision therapy. I thought that was really cool. Maybe that doesn't make sense to you guys. You're why are you talking about this? It was profound, okay? Dr. Cook says it so much better than me. Dr. Cook also talked about our ZOZA, or the zone of simultaneous awareness. And again, if you've been in the Mastering Peripheral course, I definitely talk about this there. But it's how much can you be aware of simultaneously? And a lot of people with strabismus have a very closed off ZOZA. So our zone of simultaneous awareness is really small. We're only seeing just right here. We're not seeing that peripheral at the same time. And that can actually create a lot of anxiety because it's kind of an inward focus. And as we learn to focus out, expand our ZOZA, or our zone of simultaneous awareness, that's going to definitely decrease anxiety, help you feel more comfortable in your space. Of course, it makes so much sense, but why didn't I think of it? Okay. So again, I could just talk all day about Dr. Cook, but those were the big takeaways that were aha moments that I hadn't really thought of before. I went to a class about vertical strabismus. It was a little bit over my head. So I did not understand a lot of what was in that class. Big things he talked about with vertical strabismus, it's a lot harder than a horizontal strabismus. So if you've got an eye that goes up or down, he personally, and I could tell that there was like ruffling some feathers in the audience, but the teacher was talking about how he is more likely to use surgery with a good surgeon and prism glasses when it comes to vertical strabismus, because they're very symptomatic and it helps a lot with the symptoms and can make it a lot easier to do the therapy. So I thought that was interesting. He definitely got some hands raised, like, why would you do surgery? Like, there was definitely some of this going on, which was exciting. I wanted my popcorn so I could just sit and watch, right? He also talked about the fast Vergent system and the slow Vergent system. And he talked about it like the whole time, and I was just trying to wrap my mind around it. And after the whole lecture, this is how I'm thinking of it. The fast Vergent system is when your brain is like, looks at a new distance, right? You're switching distances and you initially, maybe your eyes are like not lined up, and it's the ability of your brain to like align and get that vergence lined up so that you're seeing single without any double vision. You know, for someone with like a constant esotropia that's suppressing, like they're not going to have either system, but somebody who's maybe got an intermittent eye turn. This is more for those people, and it could be hyper or exo. It's like that intermittent is like, oh yeah, okay, I can align it quickly. The slow Vergent system is like the ability to like keep holding it there. And like, I think the words he said, it takes the load off the system and finds balance. So it's kind of like that more in between. It's like the slower, how are you maintaining that? So when someone's got an intermittent eye turn, maybe they can align it immediately, but then holding it there, it's like their fast Vergent system is fine. It's the slow Vergence and being able to hold that and maintain it for a long period of time. That's where they got the problem. So I thought that was really interesting. I'd never differentiated between the two, but apparently it's like a whole thing. So again, we could go on forever about that. I'll admit there were a lot of slides at that class that I had no idea what they meant. They were like diagrams and patient case histories, and I just have no idea. So there is a lot to learn for me still, but that was the major thing that I took away from that. And then last, this is going to be a long video. I'm so sorry, and you're welcome. The last class I went to was definitely geared towards vision therapists. I had tons of things that I took away to help with my patients, which I'm really excited about. But there were still some things that helped me as a patient, right? Not as a vision therapist, but as a patient. She talked a lot about zones of regulation. And if you are in vision therapy, you know that sometimes you go into therapy and you're just like all over the place. You're frazzled, you're stressed, there's anxiety. Sometimes you're just worried, like, am I going to have a result? Am I going to be able to do the exercises? Sometimes I've gone in and I'm just like complacent, like I'm never going to get better. And this isn't dumb. This is dumb. I'm not even going to try. Okay. So it was so funny. She's describing it. They're talking about like little kids, and I'm like, and adults actually, like I totally experienced this exact same thing. So she had like the green in the middle is where you're regulated. Okay. This is the zone for learning. This is where you're going to have the most success with your eye exercises and in vision therapy. Then you've got the red zone. The red zone's up here. That's if you're like really angry or like just a lot of energy and you can't like settle your brain down. Anxiety, right? So it's like those big feelings. Let me see in my notes. I have them all written down. I just really went crazy. Anger, overwhelm, fight or flight, chaotic. So it's just kind of like that crazy red zone, right? If you're up here, you're not going to be having that success during an appointment. And then that's like hyper arousal. And then you've got the zone of regulation. And then underneath is the blue zone, which is hypo arousal. And that's just when you're shutting down. Like you're just like not engaged. You're just kind of like out of it, right? So it doesn't matter which one you're in. If you're not in that regulated zone, you might be able to physically do the exercise. It's like, okay, I can go through the motion. I can do this exercise, but it's not going to transfer into your actual life. You're not going to actually apply that. So maybe you can see the 3D picture, you're doing a vectogram or something, and you can see it in the office and you're like, okay, there it is. And you can do the letters or whatever. But if you aren't in that regulated zone, it's not going to transfer. It's not going to go home with you and actually apply to your life. And I'm like, how many appointments have I had where I was in not the regulated zone? And those appointments, it's like, yeah, I can have success there, but it's not coming home with me. It's like mind blowing. So she did give a lot of great tips for like how to help someone get into the regulated zone. So just like simple stuff, like do some deep breathing or meditation exercises, trampoline, cat stretches, dancing, bilateral body movements, crawling, rolling, bilateral scribble. I thought that was fun. A lot of them are geared towards kids, but again, I'm like, I'm just basically a kid. I'm only 38. And then for the people who are in the blue zone, like a weighted blanket, scrunching a towel with your toes. I thought that one was really interesting. I want to try it. Swinging. So just some different things to like help regulate your body. I thought that was just like, okay, how can I take some control in this as I'm going to a vision therapy appointment, or as you're going to a vision therapy appointment? How can you make sure you are in that green zone? Does that mean getting plenty of sleep the night before, drinking water, eating healthy, getting there 15 minutes early so that you're not worried about traffic and coming in like anxious and like all like about like weird stuff happening on the road? Like, what are the things that you can do to come in that regulated state so that the learning that you're doing actually transfers? I wish I had like known this before I did my vision therapy, because I think, oh, how much more effective would have all that work and time been had I done that? It's the same thing for home exercises. So anyways, this was my very long, and I didn't even like scratch the surface. There's like a million conversations. Anyways, so I'll keep sharing, but these are the big takeaways from the OVDRA, used to be COVD conference that I was at last week. If you have more questions, you can put them in the comments, because I'm sure I skipped over things trying to get through all the material quickly. I hope you learned something new. Definitely, like, how does this apply to you? Take that back with you to your vision therapy office. Talk to your vision therapist about it. Talk to your doctor about it. How can this help you make, like, you take control of your own therapy, and what can you do to make it more effective for you as a patient? So, good luck. Have a fabulous week, and we will see you in the next video.